Yeah, hello everyone. I think we are ready to start. Welcome to this thematic session on media. My name is Peter Haase. I will be moderating this session. So I think it's quite undisputed that the media and publishing industry are really prime examples of industries that have been transformed and are being transformed by digitization, data-driven technologies. And in this session, we will actually have four examples, very interesting examples of how that is happening. We will hear a lot about game changers, disruptions, and yeah, our first presenter that I'm happy to announce is Guillaume Klossa. He's from the European Broadcasting Union. He's the director there. Actually has a lot of roles there. He's responsible for public affairs, for research, strategy, and big data. And in the presentation now, we will hear about big data as a game changer. So, please.
Okay, it's already up to me. Good morning, everybody, first. Earlier today, we discussed the fact that data are key in order to change the European economy. But in many fields, we are not yet data-driven. And one field which is key for the future of Europe is creative industries and media. Why? Because it's the DNA of Europe. And it's also a challenge because in Europe we have a lot of regulation, and these regulations do not exist in the same way in other continents, in China, in the US, and we need to integrate them. So we have big challenges ahead, and sometimes we are in delay, which is the case in a certain number of industries. So today I'm going to speak about how critical public service media can be, and more generally public service, and to explain you what we try to do. The first thing is to try to put big data at the heart of public service media. You know the EBU. The EBU is the most influential media organization in the world, present in more than 50 countries with more than 70 members. And among them, you have the BBC, you have VRT, NTO, RAI, France Télévisions, but also Canal+ or TF1, and many other organizations. And our role is to develop ecosystem in order to reinforce public service competitiveness and capacity to modernize. And we have developed technological standard since nearly 60 years. We have one conviction is the media of today won't be the media of tomorrow, and more or less we have 5 years to go ahead to transform traditional media into what we call hybrid media. And sorry, I'm going to put myself here, it's bigger. And for that we are developing what we call the EBU Big Data Initiative, which is an industrial cooperation between public service media, but also with other stakeholders, with academia, with external partners. And we have developed 4 workflows in order to go ahead the quickest, the better. So data is not new for us. It's something which was traditionally important, but for audience measurement and for indexation, so metadata, for archiving. But it was not critical. It was something very marginal and not at the heart of our strategy. Big data is something completely different. It means that we can use, from now, big volume of data and a big diversity of data, which was not the case up to now, very quickly, and that we can have, we can include them in our decision making as early as now. But for us, it's a key challenges, because traditionally, public service media were very reluctant to use data. They consider that the using of data was something for commercial media and not for us. Secondly, it raises a certain number of very practical issues. How to collect them, how to use them, given that we consider that we have specific responsibility and values with regard to our final user in terms of transparency, in terms of how to use them, how to choose the right data and what for which purposes, And what does it mean in terms of organization, transformation of our strategy, and in terms of mindset? And for that, we decided, and our big member, France Télévisions, BBC, VRT, RAI, etc., that big data was our future. It was not an option, and we needed to go ahead together because we need critical mass to understand, to develop research, to cooperate, and to make an ecosystem which will allow us to be data company in the next 5 years. And behind that, there is a vision. And our vision is very simple. Up to now, we were, and we are 95% traditional media. What does it mean? It means we are one too many media. We have program, and we give this program to the mass, free to air. And even if we are more and more digitalized, it's remained marginal up to now in terms of audience. In 5 years, in 10 years, we will be completely digital, and our competitor won't be the same as we have now. Our competitors are more and more the GAFA. And the GAFA will have more and more national content, and so the field of competition has completely changed. And in this respect, data will be everywhere. So we have no choice. And our vision is within the next 5 years, we need to become hybrid and experiential media with a very strong interaction with our viewer. And we will be more and more one-to-one, interactive, enriched, and personalized. Of course, we will keep a mass media program for sport, for big political debate, for a certain number of series. But even for that, we will have additional service and additional information on all the screen, because of course there will remain the TV screen, and we will use any kind of device. So we consider big data is one of the key to innovate as early as now and not in the future. And this is something very new. And the fact that we decide to act together is also something very new. And it's linked to the fact that we consider our competition is not national anymore. It's a global competition. And behind that, there is a question, which is the survival of the European culture, the creative industry, and our key values. And our vision is big data for us is key for 3 reasons. It helps us to better understand our audiences, first thing, which is key, to optimize our content distribution, and to change completely, to transform the user experience. And to give you an example, in the past, we were mainly interested in audience measurement. Now, for one content, we can be interested in all this kind of information and many more. So it changed completely our culture. Audience measurement was something for market research. And you see that all these information in terms of preference, location, demographics, the kind of topics, etc., concern all the organization. Marketing people, program people, digital people, technology people, legal people. So it's another mindset. And we have to break the silo, which is not always easy in public service organization, but more generally in big organization. So it's another philosophy we have to develop. And we have to do it considering that we have key values, and we need to integrate these values. We can't do anything we want. And these values are for public service media: universality. How do you combine personalization and universality? Independence. How do you respect independence where you are more and more linked with other stakeholders, such as GAFA for distribution? It's accountability, which is behind that the question of transparency, and it's diversity. And you know that with the recommendation system, we may tend to propose people what they like, or our responsibility is to open, not to give people exactly what they want. And in order to answer this challenge, we have developed what we call the EBU Big Data Initiative. And we try to develop a European perspective. So we started a bit more than 1 year ago. The first issue was to identify and to agree on the key challenges that I spoke earlier, to develop a common understanding and a community of people, and this community of people should be interdisciplinary and transnational, to identify operational priorities and to develop a kind of industrial program, the EBU Big Data Initiative, and then to integrate within our member these priorities. So that's the different step on the slide. Initially, we had a brainstorming with all kinds of people, and this is very interesting. If the risk we had is that people consider big data is only technology and technique. It's not at all that. The key issue is what is it useful for? And in order to develop a sense of usefulness, you need to put together people coming from everywhere. And you need to make it a DG, a CEO issue. And for that, you need to have people from, as I said earlier, and it's very important, content, market research, marketing, communication, technology, data scientist, digital, etc. And that's the only way in order to speed up the data mindset, which is really transversal. The silo are something which can kill us, and we need to go beyond. And for that, we need to develop a common agreement within the company as early as now. And we have worked on that, which was the first step. When we have done that, the question is how do you develop a continental data community? And for that, we have organized an EBU Big Data Week with master classes, with a European conference open to academia and to other industry, and with hackathon on specific and operational issue to develop this mindset. And from this, there was 3 key challenges who were identified. One is how we can remain competitive in this much more international world and keep our public service media DNA and our values. The second key issue was how to put big data at the heart of our strategy, and it remains a key challenge. And the third one is how to develop a mindset which is to learn, test, accept failure, share, develop skills, an A/B testing vision, which is not obvious in public service, as you may know, but it is not obvious in many traditional companies in Europe. And from then, we have developed 4 parallel workflows with regard to audience measurement, media strategy, recommendation system and algorithm, and data trust principle. Data trust principles are very key for us because initially there was reluctance everywhere in our company to use this capacity of massive data. Because we have not the culture, because also people consider that our viewers would be very reluctant to see us using this data. And so there was a kind of internal blockade. And what we did and what we are doing is to define big data trust principle in order to be able to use, to connect, to collect, to cross-analyze the data we receive from our viewers, but also third-party data. And there is 2 main objectives. One is to develop trust with regard to our audience, but the second one is to develop internal trust with regard to our employees. Because if they don't feel comfortable in using data, you can't leverage the big data potential. So you need to act on 2 levels. Your audience, your consumer, the private, and the internal trust, your staff, in order to be able to act and to be quick, agile, to test, learn, etc. That's a key condition. So by the end of this year, we will develop for the public service media industry, and maybe for the media industry because we are open, this data trust principle. Second thing which is very important, and it's only a step. In the past, we only watch audience measurement with regard to TV program on TV screen. Now, we need to assess globally our audience, whatever the platform, whatever the device. And we are working on new standard for audience measurement. But it's only a step because behind that, the question is how to collect data in order to better understand the audience on a continuous way and not only on a static way. Another key issue is data is for us also an opportunity to transform our interaction, to enrich our content, and to create new kind of added value for our user and new kind of working. And we have developed a project which is Generation What. Generation What is very interesting because I don't know if you saw the Brexit. There was a lack of understanding of how young people reacted. And thanks to Reaction What, which is a massive survey which concerns 1 million Europeans for the moment, and we have a benchmark, we had questions with regard to the relationship we have to the European project. And it was one of the sources used by media in order to understand the reaction of young people in Britain and to understand the potential reaction that young people could have in other countries. And just to give you an example, okay, we go directly to the video.
Generation.
What? In Austria, Generation What had an awesome start. The kickoff event in April was the beginning of a great corporate success. Using all media, online, TV, and radio, the ORF is well connected. More than 84% of the under 30 audience consume at least one ORF media venture every day. Television, various programs reported on Generation What with background stories and interviews. Generation What TV spots have reached more than 30% of the young target group. Radio. E3, the most popular radio station, established its own
Generation.
What? Program, a daily 1-hour show. The whole country is being asked 149 questions, so 149 shows. Internet. The ORF's online services provide constant access to everything Generation What. Along with youth-oriented organizations, a platform of vibrant exchange has been established. Livestream and on TV. The ORF Dialogue Forum focused exclusively on Generation What, giving young people a voice.
Cool, yeah?
Wherever you find a youthful audience, you will find the ORF. 65,000 Austrians offered more than 6 million answers, and that just within 2 months. The ORF looks forward to a continued participation in this exciting endeavor.
Mama! Eto.
Generation.
What?
So it's only for one country, but we are doing it at continental level. We have 13 countries at the core of this project, 18 EBU members, but we have participants from everywhere in Europe. And now we have more than 1 million people which have answered. The project will go on up to November. And what you can see with the video is it inspires a lot of different things. And thanks to big data, I would say, to this capacity to have massive survey, we can understand the youth people, we can benchmark them, we can give analyze, and we can invent new kind of relationship and shows. So it's only one example, but that kind of thing we can do it also for many transnational challenges, such as refugee and migration, such as international crisis, such as climate change. And it can help to change the vision of reality and to develop a better understanding of reality. Many other things are possible. We are working, for example, on big data and Panama paper because we have the Panama paper were huge, and we barely used the potential of the Panama paper because we had not a big data approach, and we have not developed the right algorithm, etc. But for that, you need economy of scale, you need cooperation, you need a new mindset. This is for content, but many things are possible. Another thing which is key is using recommendation system for us is not an option. Not an option at all. But if we use them, we need to avoid people to have access only to their preferences, and we need to develop discovery function. So that's our responsibility. We have developed recommendation system, and we are working on an open source basis, and we are working also on a A and B testing approach at the continental level. Maybe we can have a look at what we are doing in Finland with Wiley, which is a system which is shared between several public service media in Europe.
Personalization of news is like a Swiss Army knife. There's a lot to choose from, but honestly, people tend to ignore all the great options available and stick with the blade they know. The key is finding the balance between full-scale, all-out personalization and gatekeeping for different segments. What we think is important news versus what the user thinks is important. This is a statistical fact. People who use personalization are far more happy with the service than the ones who don't. Oh. They also use it far more than people who use the regular, non-personalized one. How do we know this? We did it by launching our extremely customizable Newswatch application. News junkies loved it. But we ran into a dilemma. The tool provides us full customization. But how do we get people to use all the blades? The solution is: personalization has to be voluntary. You can't force it. Personalization has to be transparent. People have to know when it's their choice or ours. Personalization has to be effortless. Make it super easy. What's next for us? Going beyond apps. We brought personalization to our sports website. What have we learned? Devices come and go. But the one thing you can rely on is this. If you learn to understand people, you can sell them all the blades.
All the blade, but by keeping our values. So I think this short film explains very well the challenges we have, but also the philosophy and the mindset in which we have. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We have time for a couple of questions. Yes, right there.
Hello, I'm Younes from Luxembourg, the Innovation Agency. Are you looking for some partners in your initiative, either on big data, on the media part, or you're already full?
No, we maybe we can take several questions so that I can. We consider that we need to have an open philosophy, and we need to partner with people who want to partner with us on the basis of mutual added value. And also of a long-term approach, because we really believe on long-term. Our conviction is we need to develop an ecosystem with public, private, academics and citizens. And it's what we try to do. We are in a learning process. We are very humble, and we know we start, but we know that we have to be quick. And the quicker is possible only if we partner, but in very clear conditions.
Okay. Any more? Yeah, I have a question there.
Hi, from Spotify. In the effort of trying to understand all your audience and using big data to do so, What do you think about issues like privacy and being able to perhaps cross-join or commingle data sets from different companies to be able to gain a better understanding? Have you thought about these potential issues or how to handle them?
Do you think that we have not discussed this point? Sure?
I don't know. I would love to hear an answer for how to handle it, how to solve it.
It's a key issue, and I think it's an issue we need to handle together. Because of course we need to cross-analyze, we need to connect bases, etc. And at the same time we need to respect European regulation and national regulation, and we need also to respect our DNA. And our DNA, as I told you, we need to have trust principle, and these trust principles are very important for two things: for internal resistance, because we are not in a culture of data, you are in Spotify, and for external relationship, because as public service media, we are a cultural institution, and there are certain expectations on us that are not on you. So we need to manage all that. It's not easy, and I think we can discuss it together to see how to find the right way. But it will be on consent, on the consent of user, which is one thing. Secondly, we need to respect the rules. We need to be clear on why and what for. It's really important, and our user need to have access to that, and transparency also is key. So if you believe you can do it, maybe we can do it together.
Awesome, thanks.
We perhaps have time for one more question.
Please.
Okay.
There.
Hi, thanks for the talk. So it's known from the literature that you can increase the consumption of more diverse types of content by personalizing.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly the effect that you might, so the worries that you express about the filter bubble, actually in many cases overcome by personalizing and a bit of randomization. Is that something you've thought about? Is that something you're going to implement? Is that?
I'm going to answer, but who are you? Sorry.
Oh, Maarten de Rijk. I'm a professor of computer science, so developed these recommendation algorithms at the University of Amsterdam.
Okay. And are you working with us on, because we are working with many academic people? Not yet?
No, we're not.
Okay, good. So the question is simple. Full personalization is a risk. It's not compatible with our values, so we need to provide discovery, and we need also to give room to editorial choices in algorithm we are developing.
Yeah, so one could debate that it is your responsibility to make editorial choices.
That's our responsibility, and we need to combine both, and it's possible.
Well, you could debate that whether that is your responsibility.
We could debate on many things, but I think we consider it is our responsibility because we consider that we are in European society with a certain DNA, with certain values, and we value the choice also of expert people somehow in content. That's a choice. Huh? We consider that this is part of pluralism, independence of media, and we need to stick to that. It's just a matter of, I would say, European philosophy, but we can debate.
Well, there is, as I said before, there is scientific literature that shows that if you give more space for personalization, people will consume more different types of content.
Yeah, but
and so that's actually opposite to telling them what they should listen to or view.
Yeah, but what we say is we try to develop algorithm where there is personalization, people can choose, but we keep a room for recommendation curation because we consider this is our task. If we combine both, maybe you could have the advantage of both. But if you don't do that, you have one risk. If the people in charge of program, they are not interested anymore. And at the end of the day, what is the risk? Is the lower quality program. Because you need to have program matter which are committed if you want to have high quality and if you want to have creativity. Just in order to allow people to have diversity. So you need to find about this I would say, diverse, complex ecosystem. But thinking only about preferences is forgetting that you need people to create program, and that these people need to be committed if they want them to give good quality result, excellent program, etc. You need to think about the ecosystem and beware about the research, because the series we have are short in time. We need to have a longer view, and for me, the kind of view should be maybe a decade or 2 decades before we can give really certified research result. And I think shorter time is not big enough to have a final conclusion of what you say, and it's not ecosystemic. Think about the creative people, think about the audience, and think long term.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting debate. I'm really sorry to have to stop it here. Maybe we can continue in the lunch break or in the coffee break.
So I'm
at this
open.
point, yeah.
Just maybe for people. I don't know. Or can we go to the first slide, because there is my data. If you want to, you have my Twitter file, which is at Guillaume Klossa, and my email, which is Klossa, Klossa, at ebu.ch. If you want to.
I assume you will be around for the
Yes.
day, right? So yeah, let's thank the speaker again. Okay, our next presenter is Paul Groth. He's Director of Disruptive Innovation at Elsevier. And in this presentation, he's going to talk about how Elsevier uses data science to support researchers. So,
yeah, hi
welcome,
everybody.
Paul.
Oh, that's loud. I hope you've been enjoying the conference so far. Just for my edification, I was wondering how many of you are researchers, just to consider yourself researchers. So maybe about 40%. And I think if this is a slide, because I'm a researcher as well, this is a slide that really impacts me a lot. This is the growth of scholarly content over time in the major industrial nations and China. So this is Europe, the United States, and on the bottom is the Netherlands. So we as researchers are faced with this impressive amount of new content that's coming out of what we research. Likewise, we just get, what's going on there? We have at Elsevier over 1.3 million submissions. So this is what gets published. We get submissions, so that's research coming at us that may or may not get published every year. We have about 12 million people accessing a month these scientific articles, downloading them, reading them from Science Direct. But you're not just faced with content, articles as a researcher. Now you're faced with data. So this is one of our research data repositories that we build. It's called Reaxys. It's a chemistry database. And it contains over 40 million different reactions, 75 million different compounds. So these are chemical structures that you can download. People use this for drug development. They use this for chemistry synthesis. They use this to do engineering work. And there's over 500 million facts in Reaxys. So the point here is that as a scientist, you're really faced with this overwhelming amount of content and data. So what can we do with data science and big data analysis to help you really start answering those questions? So I want to give you 3 different examples of how we're using data science to help. So one is answering this question of what should I read? And we had this great discussion about recommender systems, so I'll talk about recommender systems. Another question you might like to ask is, who as a researcher or as a research institution should I collaborate with? And the final one, which I think is very appropriate for the European data forum, is, how can I make my data available so that other researchers can really use it, right? So I can reuse that data. So let's talk about these 3 examples. So we have a system called Mendeley that helps you manage your research. And this is work by Maya, who's one of our data scientists at Mendeley. And what we're trying to do with Mendeley is build tools that help you as a researcher researcher organize the literature, search and discover new literature, collaborate with your collaborators to see, okay, what kinds of papers should I read, and then eventually help that in your experimental processes. And so being a researcher, we want to be on top of our game. And as all of you know, it's really hard to read everything. If you do have Google Scholar alerts, they're always coming at you. Oh, you should read this or you should read that. The big conferences come out, you should read something there. And there's really just a large amounts of this research being produced. So what we'd like to be able to do is recommend what you should read. So we've built this recommender system that we call Suggest, Mendeley Suggest. And what's really interesting about this recommender system is we try to tackle this problem that came up before of diversity, right? So how do I get diversity into the recommendations that I give the reader? And the way we do this is we actually don't just have one recommender system. We don't have 2 recommender systems. We have actually 5 different recommender systems running over a user's profile in order to give them different views on that literature. And so then the research question actually is, how do you organize that page to go what's on top and to show different kinds of recommendations? So Mendeley Suggest is a personalized article recommendation system. Our input is the user's library. So people using Mendeley, what they do is it's kind of like a reference manager. So they have all their papers in it. We look at their library. We apply the various kinds of collaborative filtering type recommender systems, as well as content-based recommender systems, to produce these suggested article outputs. And so what's interesting here is that we need to do this pretty much every day for 4.2 million profiles, right? So this is a really big recommendation task. And in order to do that, we moved our previous recommender system that was running on a distribution of Hadoop over to Spark. And this is my one super deep technical slide so that you can come talk to me afterwards about it. But essentially, we moved it to Apache Spark, and we had all sorts of speed ups. And I can give you more details about this. But the point here is to do that kind of multi-step recommendation system over 4 million profiles really requires data science, and it required a lot of effort for us to tune these algorithms to get that kind of diversity. So that was my first example about what should I read. My second example is really about who should I collaborate with. So this is a tool we have called SciVal, and what SciVal is a system that lets you understand the performance of your research institution, how your research institution collaborates both with other academic research institutions and also with industry. So here we analyze all the articles, pretty much every article that's been published in a major journal through another database called Scopus. We also analyze patents, and we build these large-scale co-author networks, large-scale institutional networks. We geographically locate everything so that when you come into this tool as a research policy officer, maybe a head of research, maybe somebody who's trying to do a new grant, you can start looking at, okay, what is the performance of my institution? Who are we collaborating with? We can make these kind of great visualizations. Interestingly, the data behind this powers things like some of the Times Higher Education World University rankings. But in order to drive SciVal so that when you log in and it's quick, we have to do some serious big data analysis. So we need to benchmark over 4,000 institutions, and we have to do that on 220 countries. So if you're the Netherlands, if you're Germany, if you're the United States, if you're Illinois, if you're Amsterdam, we have some cool reports upstairs where you can look at the performance of Amsterdam. We have to do that on a weekly basis. We have to analyze 40 terabytes of data. In order to do that, we use our sister's company's high performance computing platform. So this is a open source platform from HPC Systems. That's part of LexisNexis. And we have to essentially calculate this 75 trillion metrics every week. So this is super simple, right? Easy, great user interface. This is some serious data science. And we would like to get this up so that we can also start things like media mentions and really increase the amount of data that we shove through the system, so you can really get that complete profile of who I am as an institution and who I can interact with. So the final example I really want to talk about and is really about what we're thinking around data. So one of the things that we do at Elsevier is create these really fantastic data sets like Reaxis, and we go to a lot of work producing these. We also do this for engineering data sets. But this is a really expensive process, actually. It requires manual curation. It requires subscribing to every article and patent in the world and going through it. And this is only really useful for domains that have a large enough population. So when you're thinking about chemistry or you're thinking about engineering. For smaller domains, that kind of effort is not worth the trade-off. But we still want to be able to provide researchers with a way that they can share their data and make it most useful. And unfortunately, or not all data is curated. Not all data has the investment put into it like we put in with Reaxis. So this is my favorite example of this. If you know Thomas Piketty, he wrote this Capital in the 21st Century, and he's great. He has open data, right, that he's made available on his website that looks like it's from the 1990s in a directory, right? A lot of it is to understand that data, you actually have to sit and read a PDF file with his kind of Excel file together. And it's great that he put it up, but to really understand that data is quite hard. And it's on a web page that may not be there forever, right? So it's not archival. So I think if you're in data science, you know a lot of times what you're doing is curating this kind of data. You're getting the data from different places, making it in a better position, putting it together nicely. And I think that's what we're faced with as scientists. A lot of the openly available data is just not as usable as we'd like. So what we'd like to be able to do is help researchers make more highly effective open research data. And so we have this kind of this like hierarchy of needs for open research data, where we go from just getting the data stored on someplace that's going to be archived, through making it accessible, through having things like search engines, through making it so that I can say, hey, I built on top of that data, citable, up through making it really reusable. And what we're trying to do is develop systems to help with that. So our first endeavor in this area is something called Mendeley data. So what this enables researchers to do is really upload their data sets, but we do things like give it a DOI so you can cite it, make it accessible via an API so you can grab it from your Python program, link it to the article that it's referenced in so you have this bi-directional link. So these are little things, but they make it just that much easier for you to get a hold of that data and to start reusing it. Going forward, we're doing a number of different things around open data. One of them is to try to help data get curated from the point that it's generated. So just a couple of weeks ago, we announced the acquisition of HiveBench, which is a great piece of software for letting you track your lab notebooks and also the data around your lab instruments. And so this will help us better curate that data from the get-go, hopefully leading it to be more reusable. So those are really 3 examples of how we're using data science to really, we've heard a lot about value the past couple of days, to really try to create value for researchers around both open data and around all that content that researchers are faced with. We have a lot of data science, interesting data science questions, and we partner with lots of different academic groups. So we have a German text and data mining center. We partner with the UCL Big Data Institute, looking a lot at large-scale network analytics and also information extraction. And we're working with Amsterdam Data Science to really focus on these questions of how do we do better research data search and systems around helping us do better search for our normal, regular science direct search. So we think those kinds of academic collaborations help us a lot as a company really become this information service provider for systems. So to wrap up, researchers are really faced with an ever-growing amount of content, all these articles, but also an ever-growing amount of data. And it's really crucial that we bring to bear the knowledge around how we do data science to really help researchers be more productive, right? So science is really something that is fundamental to our society, and we need to help researchers do better science, and data science is a way of doing that. I've illustrated that with 3 examples. We have lots of other ones, so you can check out labs.elsevier.com, so that's our research lab, but also our head of data science has a lot of fun stuff around data science on his blog. And like with everybody, and I think this is a lesson for all of us, is we need more data scientists. We need more people who know something about machine learning. We need to educate a lot of our own developers to get them up to speed on all this new technology. So if you have anybody, let me know. And thanks a lot, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hi, congrats, nice talk. I'm Victor Pascual from Chase Academic. I would like to know, how do you deal with the ambiguity of the data that you're dealing with? Like, we know that there's no proper structure to save data from a paper. Like, sometimes you've got ambiguities in the name of the institution, name of the department, name even of the author. How do you deal with these kind of things? Yeah, so we run in our Scopus database, essentially we run massive disambiguation algorithms on that. So those are proprietary disambiguation algorithms, but then we also have a feedback loop. Luckily, we drive quite a lot of traffic so that users can edit their own information and let us unify things like their profiles. So it's this automatic piece along with the curation piece is essentially how we do that. So it's a big place where we think we add a lot of value to make doing that disambiguation. In the back?
Okay, so who was first? I think we have time for one more question. Phil, yeah?
Martin can ask me hard questions later.
Thank you. Hi, Phil Archer, W3C. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Phil.
So I could ask you 101 questions. I've got time for one, apparently. Can you expand a bit? I'm interested in what Elsevier is doing to actually support science. You have all this data there. Are you actually helping scientists and researchers find new discoveries and make new connections that are not obvious? Are you using the technology to point people to, oh, did you know there's these 700 articles that all suggest this enzyme might be worth looking at or whatever? And how is Elsevier monetizing what you're doing?
So I think, let's see, I'm trying to give you a really good example. I'll give you a recent example, right? And it actually is a little bit more on the policy perspective. So we're now going to be running a study on all cancer research for the US's Cancer Moonshot project. And we're trying there to essentially look at, okay, what has been published on cancer? Where are the gaps? those kinds of things. And we're using the SciVal tool that we showed. And now that we're doing together with that project, but we have many good examples. For example, like the state of Illinois actually commissioned us to actually look at their productivity to help them decide on those investments. And so that's one way we monetize the analytics over the top of that. In terms of helping researchers, I know people who in chemistry who use Reaxys every day, right? So this is something where they will sit in here, the primary to develop new reaction techniques. I mean, this is now getting way too chemical for me, but essentially what they want to do is optimize their reactions, right? Once they found a chemical, and they just sit in Reaxys, there's a whole tool around it to do that. So that's another concrete example where we're helping researchers.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I understand there are more questions, but we do have to stick to the schedule. We have 2 more presentations, so let's thank Paul again. I assume you're also around for.
I'm around.
For the lunch.
So.
Yeah, so we have 2 more presentations, and I'm really happy that the speakers are here. They actually just landed, just flew in from London. Next presenter is Jem Rayfield. So Jem really has been innovator when it comes to data-driven architectures and technologies in the publishing industry for quite some time. And so he was the key architect behind the introduction of dynamic semantic publishing at the BBC. Now he's with the Financial Times, head of solution architecture, yeah? And I'm really looking forward to see how the Financial Times uses data to deliver value. Yeah?
Okay. I'm Jem. I'm from the Financial Times. We've had an interesting few days at the FT. We've had lots of traffic, interesting news at the moment. I don't have a clicker, so where is that? Is that here? Okay. Okay, so we've been around for 125 years, and we've only recently been using data to understand our customers and also to build our site. So this talk is about how we're using data not just to build reports for analytics, but also build our products and the use of data within the newsroom. So talking about democratizing the data, our analytics platform, the products we built from the data, so that's customer-facing products as well as editorial products, how we use linked data, sharing that data, and how we've built some of our recommendation engines. So at the FT, we used to have a data warehouse that was used by data scientists and the BI team, and the data was closed, not really used by anyone else in the business. And what's really important about the changes we're making is making that data decentralized, pushing out across the business and being able to use it pretty much everywhere and building products around it. So it's more than just about technology. It's about getting people to understand that unique identifiers are important, that open data models are important, sharing the data is important, and how you reuse the data. It's a mindset change as well as technology. So open data is pretty important at the FT. We consume data such as open corporates, geo names, etc., to use as part of our knowledge graph. We're also planning on publishing open data, so when news events occur, we're planning on having an API that pushes out RDF representations of news events and a storyline ontology. So open data at the FT, as well as using it, we're about to be creating data and pushing that stuff out. So open data is massively important to us. So we've built a tool called Lantern. It's a journalist-facing tool that's all about providing analysis insight to what's happening on our products. It's a FT-built analytics platform. It consumes the clickstream and user activity on all of our portfolio, consumes that and allows it to be used and reaggregated, data science and machine learning across all of that stuff so that we can build products from it. And we use a common vocabulary of identifiers across all this stuff, and it's based loosely around sort of linked data technology. So this is Lantern. This shows some of the news from yesterday. You can see that the really interesting stories around Brexit, and then the last sort of hour or so you can see a number of views that were for that particular company. But we can also search for our contents. We can see particular topics or entities that are part of that that news feed. Anything that's of interest can be searched, and you can drill down on it based on the entities that are contained within the content. So the analytics allows us to do a number of page views, traffic from social media, search engines, etc., etc. We have all sorts of different dimensions across the traffic so that we can move our content across the site and appropriately to what's happening during the day. So for example, this is showing a particular story, the number of page views in the last hour. It shows you a live graph, so it's live analytics, so the feed comes in as it's happening. That graph changes in real time so that the journalist can react and change that. So you have different types of stats, like how long they stayed on the page, the scroll depth, how far they went down on the page, medium time on the page. All those types of stats are really valuable to the journalist to be able to move content about and put it in the right places. We also have data on where it was referred to, where we refer to, where we go to, and the links that we inbound and outbound, and all of our traffic sources, so we can see where things are coming from and where things are going to. It's really important for us to see how our advertising and outbound linking and inbound linking is working. So we can also see by country, so we do geodetection on all of our inbound requests to see where stuff comes from, and that all of that data gets captured, and so that we can produce these fancy graphics for the journalist, and they can track and see where things are coming from. So the architecture of this is quite simple, really. We've got data warehouse. We built some APIs. They're open, and we consume events from all of our portfolio of products. So that's all our web stuff, all of our apps, etc., etc. And whenever there's any event on the site, we capture that via an API, and that all gets consumed in real time into the data warehouse. So the types of events that we might have are page views, email, subscriptions, comments, page scrolls, failures, etc., etc. All the different types of events that happen on our products are captured as part of that event stream in real time, and then captured and stored into the data warehouse. So the clients would be things like our website, some of our server code, our apps, so stuff that goes on Google App. All of those things that have JavaScript webhooks that push those events through our API into our data warehouse. And it gets federated. So I was talking earlier about how we democratize our data. It comes into the API, and then we use a number of queuing mechanisms to push that data out across all of our back-end systems. So we use a sharded kinesis model so that we can put it into Redshift, so that's our data warehouse. We have some Hadoop stuff, so we can do some machine learning on top of it. We also push things via SQS into sort of more operational data stores. So we built stuff in Elasticsearch, so we can search across the data. We put things in a graph database to align with our content, so in Neo4j. Basically, all of that data gets federated and pushed across the whole of our technology back-end system, so we can use that system. It's not just in the data warehouse. Bit of an architecture diagram. There's a bit more detail, but you've got the web page. It comes in via the API. It gets federated out via SQS. It also goes into Redshift, our data warehouse. And then we also, for our Lantern product, we use Logstash and Elasticsearch to be able to generate those nice GUI interfaces that you saw. And we also use Kibana for more sort of detailed analytics on that data. So quite simple, reusable cloud architecture. And it's all pretty cheap and scalable, so it's interesting. So what can we build out of this stuff? So when you come to the FT, you can see on the pages what things are being most read, and that reacts in real time. So you can see yesterday, it was all about Brexit, surprise, surprise. And yeah, so immediately that data is fed back straight onto the products. And the data warehouse is a petabyte scale data warehouse in the cloud. It's on AWS. It's fairly cheap. It's not Hadoop. It's SQL, so that we can run standard tooling like Chart.io, etc., to get into that data and query it. And that's an advantage over standard sort of Hadoop style data warehouses. It's a traditional sort of interface into our data. And what else do we store in our data warehouse? So we capture the DNA of our customer. So whenever somebody signs in, subscribes, we capture, for example, the type of person they are. So whether they're a CEO, what industry they work for, what company, and all of those entities are linked identifiers within our graph, so that we can identify them as a person, create a semantic fingerprint about them, and interlink them with our content. So we annotate our content with the same identifiers. So we might have a story that mentions David Cameron. We might have a story that mentions BP, and a customer that comes in that signs up as being part of BP or the as a BP can see any stories that are related to that to him, and we personalize all our content based on the fact that we have personalized identifiers for first-party customer data that are one and the same and interlinked in the same graph as our content IDs, and therefore we have a graph that interlinks and we can build interesting products. Yeah. So we also use it for marketing, business intelligence, so we can write reports, and we also use it for CRM, so we can do things like dealing with the customers, failures, etc. That's our data warehouse architecture. It's a Redshift architecture that is a leader node, compute node model, and it scales really well. It's nice that we don't have to manage the architecture, and it's all managed by AWS, so it's nice. And we build reports on top of it using standard SQL type approaches. So here we have a Chart.io report on referrers that came into our site over the last 7 days. And the granularity here is over hour. It's not also SQL, we use linked data. So whenever we publish any of our content, that content is annotated with identifiers that are part of our linked open model. We model all of the entities that are important to the FT and annotate that content with those IDs. This allows us to then push that content out in an automated fashion so that without any journalist input, those stories get re-aggregated and pushed across all of our site without much intervention. That also allows us to do personalization and aggregations, and we've built all of this stuff on APIs so that we can share and build all of our products on top of that stuff. So this is an example, a very small example of the type of graph of data that we have. So the company Volkswagen is headquartered in Germany. It's listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Its industry is automotive, and it has a CEO of Matthias Müller. And we also say that this story, an emission story, is about Volkswagen. And whenever we write a story, we interlink it, so with some predicates to say, these are the things that we're writing about. It's about these things, these entities within our graph. That rich graph element allows us to query it and build interesting products, but not only interesting products, but navigation. So if you're on a page about Volkswagen, you can also go and see all the stories about the CEO. You can see all the stories about the industry that Volkswagen is in. Allows us to navigate through the graph. Yeah, so we build topic pages. This is an example of Facebook. So all of the stories that we write about Facebook are aggregated on the Facebook page by the fact that they are annotated with those IDs that describe Facebook. If you could scroll down, you can't, but we know that Facebook is part of a particular industry, et cetera, and there's navigation options there that allow you to step through the data to get to other parts of the site based on a graph of data. We also have trending topics. So given the fact that we're annotating our content with IDs that describe topics, we can also calculate the things that are important at the moment, so things that are being talked about. So yesterday Brexit was at the top, and the Labour Party was also interesting because there's lots of people resigning. Chaos. Yeah. And we also have the fact that we personalize our site. So we have this notion of MyFT. So when a user signs in, they can capture the things that they're interested about. So they can say, I am interested in Brexit and the European Union and mergers and acquisitions. So then when you come into the site, you automatically get shown that content. It surfaces to you because you personalize your user ID with those entities that are of interest to you. So we can create personalized feeds, websites, email distribution, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is more about MyFT personalized topic site that allows us to do following, saving, exploring based on your interests and recommendation. So it's quite a simple model. User follows concept, and here you can see some Neo4j query at the top. So it's a really simple graph. But the concept ID, it goes into a much wider graph, so all of the other things that are linked to that concept are also part of that graph. But you can see the actual annotation of user follows a particular concept is very easy, and the query itself is quite easy. And to build products off that simple model is really powerful. So we also do recommendation. Primary objective is to serve relevant articles, increase engagement, improve usability based on what people have read and what people are interested in. And how do we do that? So talked a lot about entity detection. So we have some concept extraction engines we've built based on open source frameworks. So we use Gate, standard NLP type architecture with some machine learning. And what you can see here is some of the entities that we've detected as a story gets published. So we've found, I don't know, Facebook in there, for example. And on the right-hand side, you can see how relevant those topics are to the story. And that's done based on the number of times it's used, where it's positioned in the story, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have these relevant scores allow us to annotate the story with some sort of scoring that allows them to order the content based on relevance into our products. And then the other thing we do is we can match similar articles, so similar content based on a semantic profile. So we build up a fingerprint of the article. So all of the entities are associated to that article, create a score, a semantic score, and then we have a search index that has a search index across all of those fingerprints, allowing us to then bring back articles that have a similar semantic score, allowing us to do recommendation based on this content is similar to this content. A little bit around the entity detection framework that we're using. So it's really standard Gate architecture, NLP, so things like part speech, stemmer, but we also have a gazetteer that uses our graph. So the graph of entities that we talk about at the FT are hooked into our concept extraction engine, so that when we find the word Facebook, we have the ID from our graph of data, so that when we annotate things, we annotate with the right IDs, not just a piece of free text. It's actual entity IDs. So it's unambiguous and is reusable and makes a lot of sense and hooks up to the rest of our graph of data. Yeah, so we're talking about recommendation. So we do contextual similarity, so we're talking about fingerprinting of the articles and how they interlink and why they're similar. So when you come onto a page at the FT, we show you similar articles. We also do behavioral similarity. So we track, as I was saying earlier, we track all of our click-through traffic on the site. So when a user looks at particular articles, we create a fingerprint for that user. So a user looked at X number of articles, and then all the entities for that user are captured against the user, and therefore we can then create a recommendation based on a user's behavior activity, not just the fact that a piece of content is the same. So, and we then combine contextual similarity with behavioral similarity to create similar article recommendations based on behavior and the context of the content. And it's not just about that, it's about propensity and making sure that we bucket users into similar types of behavior, so personas, so we can understand that these types of users are in this particular industry and they are CEOs, therefore you should see this type of content, or they might be in healthcare and therefore they should see this type of content. So we bucket that content and make it so that it is relevant to the audience. Yeah, and our recommendation is all about the different types of events that happen on our site. So whether they comment on the site is a different type of event from whether they read the story or they make a vote on something, and those event types therefore then give different recommended content based on the events that happen. I think I've already talked about that. Similarity, behavioral recommendation, yep, that's all done, and that's me.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jem. I think we'll take one question, yeah? Okay.
Hi, John Walker, Samaku. I was wondering if you're reusing identifiers from other news agencies, and if so, do you see that helps, say, building storylines across different news agencies for aggregation and
so we've had
search
conversations with a number of people that would like to do it. Phil, that's talking later from the BBC. We've talked to guys from the BBC, The Guardian, and others about sharing identifiers for news events as they occur and building a storyline of those. It's only talk at the moment. The problem is people are reticent about sharing those stories because it's something, if there's a breaking story, sharing that knowledge early is something that people want to protect. So it's quite tricky to be able to get people to be able to see the value of news event identifiers. But we do use open identifiers from people like open corporates that's put out LEIs, for example, around companies, etc., etc. But interlinking between publishers, we have a model. We've worked on an ontology, but actually getting people to participate in sharing those IDs is tricky, which is unfortunate.
Would that help, say, for Google, for instance, to recognize?
Massively, yeah. So if you had the same identifiers that we put in RDFA, for example, that were indexed by Google, and they were the same IDs on other sites, most definitely would help with indexing and finding the same stuff. So yeah, but it's my ideal. Trying to get it to actually happen, yeah, difficult.
Okay, thanks, Jem. You'll be around for
sure.
For the day.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, our last presenter in this session is Fearnley from the BBC, where he's responsible for a number of products, including Homepage and My BBC. Yeah,
that's great.
And in this presentation, we will hear about how data transforms the relationship of the BBC with its audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Delighted to be here. My name's Phil Fearnley. I'm going to talk specifically about the programme I've been running for the last 2.5 years at the BBC. And just kind of put some context to where the programme started off its life. When we looked at what the BBC was doing in the context of data around personal data specifically, we deleted cookies off people's machines every week. We had this policy basically to do nothing, and it actually was a very positive thing for us to know nothing about our audience. We were quite proud of it at the time. Don't worry, we're not capturing any data, we know nothing about you, we'll carry on doing that. Hopefully you'll see, where we are now 2.5 years later, we're in a very different place. I think we're in a very different place principally because Tony Hall, who is the Director General of the BBC, said, look, we need to change. We need to transform as an organisation. We need to transform the relationship that we've got with our audiences. We're a brilliant broadcaster, but that's a one-way relationship. We send something out, people receive it, they either like it or they don't like it. And in the world that we're in, that's not good enough. It's not good enough to make sure that people find the things that maybe they're passionate about, they're interested in, they might be interested in. It's no longer good enough to rely on our schedules. So his ambition was transform the relationship with our audiences. Fundamentally, it's really a transformation of the way that the BBC operates. And we're about 2.5 years into that journey now, and I just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about where we're at. We realized at the start that actually transforming the relationship with the audience was kind of this big thing, but it didn't really mean anything to anybody. It's very hard to say, what does that mean in practice? So we boiled it down to 3 things. First thing was, we would take our online products, BBC iPlayer, the news product, our sport product, weather, etc., and we'll turn those from delivering the same product to everybody to being a balanced mix of delivering the best editorial curation, as well as the best algorithmic recommendations, as well as the best content discovery from our, if you like, from a more marketing perspective. So the first bit, transform our online portfolio. Second bit was to transform the way that we communicated with our audiences to make them more aware of the things that they might be interested in. And then the third thing was to tap into the knowledge that we accumulate through those contact points to increasingly change our portfolio of content. So to change the way that we schedule content, to change the way we commission content, to change the way we market, promote, and share that content and make that content discoverable. So I just want to show you a little video, if I can, which we're using internally to explain to some of our internal colleagues about what My BBC is about. Thank you.
At the BBC, we're obsessed with content. Just look at all this content. Content, content, content. Wouldn't it be nice if we had new ways to help our audience sort through it all? What if we could help people discover the content they loved the most? No matter where they are or how they access it. That's what My BBC is helping us to do. By logging in with your BBC ID, people are finally able to let us know exactly what floats their boat. They don't actually have to have a boat. So, whether they're streaming that can't miss show, discovering their new favourite band, he's so good looking, catching up on the day's events, or just smashing their mate's best high score, boom. We can use that knowledge to tell them about content we know they'll value. With new personalised notifications and recommendations, we can help ensure they never miss a thing. The more creatively we can get individuals to interact with us, using things like quizzes and games, sending in pictures and making comments, the more they'll come back, and the more we'll learn about the type of content they enjoy. You can think of the system like an ever-evolving, indispensable super brain robot that runs on people's positive thoughts. All this essentially means that across the BBC, we'll be more savvy when it comes to making things that we know people really want. Although you'll probably have some better ideas when it comes to making the actual, the thing. My BBC, for cleverer content. Or should that be more clever content?
Thank you. One of the things we were trying to do here is to bring our editorial colleagues along. This is about how might we provide data to them to make decisions or to improve their decision-making process rather than replacing their decision-making process. And in all of that, it was about the more we know about our audiences, the better we'll be able to deliver and serve to them. That's the kind of the overarching mission of what we were delivering. In the video you saw, it says at the heart of this is about understanding an audience. You're going to deliver a personalized service to somebody, you kind of need to know who they are. So we do have ID, an identity, BBC ID, as a kind of the mechanism by which we can deliver all of our services. We've got 6.4 million. I say today, it was about 6 weeks ago. We're growing incredibly quickly at the moment. We have about 2.4 million people active every month. That's people coming back. And we did this piece of analysis just before Christmas to say, for those people who are signed in, what is their profile like compared to people who aren't signed in across not just their online consumption, but across television and radio consumption. And actually the amount of hours consumed for those signed in people was 44% higher than for non-signed in people. So we were getting it right, or at least with the early adopters. For them, we upsell the benefit at every moment so that there's no hard you must sign in to get access to services. We've driven an approach which is we have to provide value at the moment at which they want to sign in. So things like pause, resume, watching iPlayer piece of content on one device, continuing that journey on another device. One of the challenges that we'd had in our iPlayer previously was the favorites were locked into your device. So if you favorited a program on iPlayer on your mobile, you wouldn't then be able to take that favorite and see that on your tablet or on your desktop. So a lot of the things that we were doing here about driving sign-in were about showing value. And the same is true for everything we did. And then the converse of that, if you like, if that's about us understanding and providing value, then what else can we provide around that? Recommendations, notifications, etc. At the heart of this is a platform that we've built. And when we set out to think about the platform, we said we wanted a scalable cloud-based platform. We wanted to use best-of-breed products in the market where they were, and only integrate and develop where we had to. So our identity is provided by ForgeRock. Our analytics, our web analytics, is a combination of ComScore for web analytics and Chartbeat for within the newsroom. For real-time analytics, we've got multivariate testing tools plugged into the platform, Maximizer and Optimizely. We use Salesforce Marketing Cloud as for social listening and for email communications and social communications. Kind of the list somewhat goes on. But what we got with all of this is we've got a closed loop where whenever we make a recommendation, whenever we do a notification, whenever we see a customer on one of the devices, we're picking up a bit of data and using that and tuning algorithms off the back of it. Our recommendations tools, we've got two. We use ContentWise at the moment for our video-based recommendations, and we've got an algorithm that our R&D unit have been working on, which we've also got plugged in. The architecture behind it is scalable, so we can kind of plug and play any recommendation engine we want to. Equally well, we've abstracted away the various components so that we don't have to be overly reliant on one single supplier. Just to give you a few flavors, we do a mixture of user choice. So on our homepage, the homepage is driven, we have a series of over 50 editorial curations at the moment. We had topical ones at the moment. So if you went on the homepage at the moment, there would no doubt be Brexit and the Labour Party and a range of other ones. Seasonal ones, so Wimbledon will be on there at the moment as well. But there are 50 that are there always. So you can get the best of the BBC, the totality of the BBC in one place, but tailored to you. It's a mixture of editorial curation and selection. So we have that on the homepage. For news, we use, similar to Jem was just describing, we use a big linked data platform. Sitting behind here, we've got 64,000 topics that people can follow. So I follow everything from GDPR and entertainment news to cricket and all sorts. There's the range of topics and the number of topics that people can follow, and then ideally never miss out. So we have a My News component on iPlayer. Not only do we have an ability to kind of pause on one device and resume on another one, we're now powering up through the recommendation engines. What's the next best thing to play? And in sport, we have similar. So we've rolled out simple things like like sports notifications for your favorite team, scores, halftime and results. The single biggest and most popular one, which we were surprised at, was the lineup for football games. So if you're a football nut, you're probably watching it in a bar or you're at the game or whatever, but actually they want to know the lineup. So actually lineup was a notification we kind of tested and put out there, and actually has been proven to be one of our most popular ones. We've launched wholly personalized services now. This is our bite-sized product. So this is kind of a learning tool for children who are doing GCSEs, so they can tailor their experience. Previously, everybody got all of the tools and everybody got all of the topics on the curricula, and you had to wade your way through it. Now with a tool, you can say, I'm studying these 8 topics, and those are the only ones that are presented to you. So really personalizing the application for you and making that learning experience better. We have a similar experience for music, so you can follow your favorite playlists and favorite artists, etc. And with all of these, they're driving a significant amount of results for us. So I've put some highlights there in terms of actually what we're delivering. These, if you like, the kind of the sort of the big numbers, if you like, the sort of the things that we are doing. 1.6 billion personalized recommendations. That's interesting. The thing for me is, do we know whether that's better or worse than most watched or most read or any other algorithm. The reality is it's significantly better. On our homepage, we have two different types of recommendations on there. Recommendation based on what's most popular, i.e. what's watched by most people on iPlayer, and we've also got recommended for you. So two different cuts of the same data, both showing content in iPlayer. So most popular is a factor of 10 worse performing, or rather the other way around, but just for you is a factor of 10 better than most popular, which I think is quite extraordinary when you think about it, that it's already 10 times better than that. On iPlayer itself, this has moved now to the front page. It's in just below the editorial choice. So if you like, the editors will choose what we think are the most appropriate programs for everybody. It'll be the new series of Doctor Who or Top Gear or whatever it is. And then below there is recommended for you. Again, substantially delivering better than what we had previously done. All of these services, though, are being driven not just onto our online products, but they're being driven into our marketing. So our newsletters, we've got a 44% click-through rate on our newspapers, on our newsletters now, and starting to be able to use segmentation of the data to get very fine, granular, behavioural-based segments. Previously, the BBC typically was using ABC1 and age range, etc., the kind of normal demographics for looking at it. Now we're looking at much more behavioural. So those people who opened a content and clicked through onto a gardening programme, we can take that as a segment, add that to the fact that they're also sports followers, and choose to then present very fine-grained email newsletter activity to them, and/or into social, and getting quite extraordinary results in terms of the click-through rates relative both to what we had previously done and to the market. I say 50% click-through rates. We're now driving about just shy of 1 billion events a day. So an event for us is something that we track. So that's a play or a pause on iPlayer. It's a read of a news article. It's a love. It's a vote on a program. It's a favorite. It's a comment. It's a share. We get a range of these things. And what we've found is that the breadth of our content mixed with the events and our ability to look at stuff from a behavioural perspective is starting to affect the way that we're making decisions about programs to commission. I'll just give one simple example. We looked at a sport-based youth program that we were thinking of commissioning. We did a mixture of listening in the social sphere, as well as looking at our online portfolio to see what the size of the audience was going to be in the nature of the program. The result was we decided not to commission the program. Previously, we would have commissioned it and then found it didn't work quite as well as we would have liked. And so we think that that's a perfect example of where we brought an understanding of our audience, both on our site and off our site, together to make genuine decisions about what we're commissioning. We're doing similar things in scheduling and everywhere else. And I'm getting the it's time to finish sign. So I presume it's because we're near to lunch as well. So I will stop there. Have we got time for questions? Yes. Yeah.
Linda Nixon, Model University Vienna. Thank you for sharing. Maybe just because of time, but of course it would be interesting also to know what your future plans are. What is in the pipeline now?
Well, if you think about the things that we are doing, we've taken an approach where we're not going to build something and then deploy it everywhere and hope it works. So I'll give an example. The iPlayer recommendation capability, we put it on our homepage first, then we put it deep within the bowels of iPlayer, and now it's on our front page of iPlayer. We've proved through data the value of that exercise. We're now taking that capability and extending it to our radio services, so we're rolling that out across radio. We're taking that out across not just programs, but clips as well. So our model has been try something on one of our products and then roll it out. The same is true for all of our products. So those events that I described, the play, the read, the favorite, the game states, the shows, etc., that's all part of a long list of event types that we're doing. So from an audience perspective, much more, if you like, personalization, balanced with editorial curation across all of their portfolio, so they feel more and more like the BBC. I'll give you one head up. We will be launching an app next week, which is kind of the most personalised version of the BBC that we've got. So that's the next big thing. But all of the individual products have got a roadmap that says how do they want to roll out personalisation features. And our marketing and audiences teams are kind of getting their head stuck into even finer grained levels of segmentation. And our commissioning teams are looking increasingly at how might I extend this brand, or how might I take my program suite forward. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing.
Christopher Brewster to you now. I can understand technically what you're doing, and I can understand from a marketing perspective what you're trying to do, but I'm slightly concerned with the whole My BBC approach in terms of your remit as a national broadcaster. Don't you think you're going to get a filter bubble effect in that people will not be exposed to other things, other ideas, even, let's say, when it comes to BBC recipes from other cuisines if they've just clicked Italian and French?
So that might be a concern if we weren't thinking about that all the time through the programme. So we've been incredibly conscious of making sure that the primary remit of the BBC to inform, educate and entertain, and to bring the voice to the nation of those things that are big and important will never go away. If there's a big news story, everything gets wiped out, and it's the big news story, whatever that news story is. The news homepage has no personalization directly on the homepage. That's 50-odd articles that you can read all the way through without any level of personalization. You can click to the right, and you can get your My News. Right? So we're very conscious of within each of our products how we make sure that we don't do that. And the filter bubble goes further, because we do obsess about this, and the executive board keep bashing me about that. So tell me about serendipity. How do we make sure that we keep challenging people about what they may or may not want to see? So even within the recommendations engine itself and the way that we tune the algorithm, we've effectively got a dial that can dial up or dial down serendipity for individuals. So we're conscious at a number of levels not to have that happen. It's not our experience to date that we've had that happen at all.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. Unfortunately, we don't have time for further questions right now. We're already in the lunch break. But thanks again to Phil and the other presenters of the session.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's now time for lunch, which I believe will be served in the main rings again, right? Okay. Thank you very much.